All right. Here we go. Welcome to Out of Home Insider. Today's guest is Gino Sesto. Gino is the founder and CEO of the award-winning agency Dash 2. Dash 2 produces amazing work for clients across all mediums and may be best known in out of home for being a perennial powerhouse at the OBIE Awards. This year, Dash 2 took home not one, not two, but 3 OBIEs for just one campaign. And this isn't just about winning awards. Dash 2 is the success story of a company born in a recession. And if you're ever curious about the power of out of home, just ask Gino about his marriage proposal. A pilot himself, Gino also teaches new pilots as an instructor and draws inspiration for business in his company from the skies, a place we should all be aiming for. Without further ado, Gino, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. That was a very flattering introduction. You did your research.
Yeah, do my research. And, as part of that research and part of, every episode, I really like to get the gist of your origin story. How'd you come to being involved with Out of Home Dash 2? How'd you get here?
Sure. I'm turning 50 in a couple of months, so I'm a little bit older, and I've been in the media buying business for a while. I previously worked at a couple different ad agencies. And like you said, in 2008, when the recession or Great Depression, some call it, hit, I was pretty much jobless and just decided at that point to start my own agency. And when we started, it was primarily traditional, even though outdoor is traditional. So we were working with mostly television commercials for our clients. And then as time went on, we transitioned more into the digital space. And then as time went on more, we've transitioned to more just being digital and outdoor. TV is still a piece of our business, but it's an aging piece of our business. So we pretty much brand ourselves as a digital and outdoor advertising agency, which oddly enough are the two forms of media that are also growing. The other 3 aren't. Radio, print, and TV have had really tough times.
Right. There's a lot of exciting things that we're talking about and how those two things work together. But maybe most relevant to right now, talk to me about what you learned in 2008, 2009, starting a company in a time kind of similar to this. There's people that are listening to this show right now that could be in the same situation, and many probably likely are, that you were in 2008. What advice would you have for somebody in using this opportunity as a platform?
Well, I got to tell you, starting a company in the middle of a recession is both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is it's a great time because what else are you going to do? There's so many people that are out of jobs that have either just picked up hobbies or whatever. For me, I already had a hobby, so I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I was like, start a business. The curse is there's just not a lot of activity. So it's a good time to hang your shingle, as they say, and get things set for when business comes back. And as we go through this recession, we are having, the same kind of mentality. Well, obviously business is tough right now, but it's not a time to just give up. It's a time to focus, time to perfect your craft, and time to work on projects that have been shelved because you were too busy before. So it is a good time to start a business in that regard.
Makes sense. And we see some of that activity coming out, some different ideas coming to the surface here. I want to talk about your background, though, and especially if you're watching this on YouTube, because it's the campaign that's really gotten a lot of traction here recently with the OBIEs. Talk to me about the campaign with Klarna, and then we can move that into the conversation of creative and out of home. But how did the Klarna campaign come to be?
So it was an amazing project, and thank you for the accolades on the 3 OBIEs. We just got them yesterday. I should have them in the background instead of the actual creative for the campaign. The Klarna, which is we've worked with off and on in the past, is a great client, and they're very, they're not afraid to try new things. They came across some research that basically about, I don't want to get too into the details, but dog owners, it was all about the dog owners and the propensity for dog owners and how connected they are to their pets. And so they came up with the idea of creating a mural or an installation, we didn't really know what it was yet, on targeting dogs, not the owners, but the dogs. Which, when we heard those words, the aha moment just came. Like, this has never been done before. It wasn't even, I didn't have to do any research. It was like obvious. Nobody's ever thought about targeting dogs.
Dogs, the four-legged creatures with the waggy tails.
Right. And I remember years ago hearing there's a term called the nag factor. When you walk through a grocery store, the cereal in the cereal aisle, the stuff that's targeted to kids is below, like mom or dad's waist. And the kid's going to pick it up and nag mom and dad saying, hey, buy this for me. And so it's very similar to the nag factor in that regard, where the dog is going to be drawn to that wall. And then the parent of the dog will then be inclined to actually look at the wall. So over here, you can see, actually my finger's a little off, there's a bunch of dog toys attached to the wall. And so what happened as dogs were walking to the dog park, they would walk on the sidewalk, and the dogs would be drawn to these dog toys. And at that point, anybody's going to go, well, what the heck is this? And then actually look at the creative, and then they would be drawn into it. So it was like the perfect symbiotic relationship, and it did really, really well. And obviously, OBIE's acknowledged the fact that it was super creative and never done before, and the creative was beautiful, and it was just an amazing installation.
And it really is, and it's always great when you're the first one to do something, pioneering something like that. And you talked about the target audience being the dogs, and we're in a time now where we're talking a lot about data and audience targeting. How important is the creative, though? Are you concerned at all about the data overwhelming the importance of great creative?
At this point, when we came up with this idea, the data was basically just the dog owner data, like the dog owners and the propensity of, how connected they are. At the end of the day, we were more worried about the creative. It wasn't the data. The data drew us to the conclusion of what to create, and then it was, now we need to create something. Mind you, this was a project that involved obviously the client, 72 and Sunny, did the creative sketching. We did the installation, and we all worked as a team to make this all happen. But data was important in the idea, and then it drew us to the creative.
How would you recommend maybe a brand, as we're excited about this, right? We're excited in Out of Home to have more audience data. How do you see those things working together for brands that are maybe getting into the space? How do you approach that creative conversation around a particular data point?
Wow, that's a great question. Oftentimes people, when they do their branding and messaging, especially most of our clients, there is no data that's involved. It's really just a knee-jerk reaction. In terms of messaging, there's never been, most of the messaging that we do, there's never been, data testing, A/B testing, in terms of before it goes up. It's just, this looks good. Let's do this. In terms of like the copywriting, it's not tested and improved most of the time. It's here's our brand. We want to put the brand up, and here's our tagline, and that's what we're going to do. However, I can see a day where people are spending more time on creative, using information on, say, for instance, the people that are driving or walking by. Like this was obviously a walking by situation, and we knew that there was a lot of dog owners walking by. I can see a day where people are doing digital campaigns targeting, I don't know, people that are going to a specific employer, and using the data from whoever on that traffic, and talking to, say, for instance, there's a baseball game, and talking to people, to the baseball fans on the way to the baseball game. So that needs to happen. I think it definitely needs to happen. Oftentimes we just do, just put the billboard up and call it a day.
What would you say makes great creative work?
Oh man,
$1 million question.
I think we have an hour or 2 hours. It's a battle that we have with our clients day in and day out. We get ads from our clients that look like magazine ads. Like they want to put as much copy points on that ad. They want to, thank these people, do whatever. There's like literally paragraphs of stuff. And at the end of the day, the golden rule is the 3-second rule. And if you can't read in 3 seconds, it's a bad ad. After that is the messaging. And I do like creative that has bright and contrast colors. Like obviously this did really well because it was very bright, and there was black and pink, and that was it. And it stood out. Oftentimes color, we did a campaign for these guys also that was for Gay Pride Month, and it was the rainbow on Sunset, and it stood out like nobody's business. So colors and copy, that's what makes good creative.
Right. And just even looking at your background, not just contrast within the format itself, but you got great contrast against the environment,
right,
as well.
Sure.
So do you consider that when you're looking at a campaign of how does the environment, how can it help
that's so
campaign manifest?
I don't think so much. I mean, if you're talking about the environment, like the blue clouds and things like that, not really. I mean, we've done campaigns. We do a lot of campaigns for Coachella, and oftentimes we've had some really successful campaigns out there where we actually incorporate the landscaping with the desert and with the windmills out there. So that we've done a lot of. I wouldn't say we've done a lot other than that, but it is a great, because it draws people in more. If you're speaking to the environment that they're in, it definitely does draw people more in to look at that creative.
Yeah, it's great, and it's I think it's fun when, and kind of the beautiful thing about out of home is it's a canvas that we can use and we can manipulate to do things like that. So, Joe, this is a new segment. This is a new segment for the show, and if you're down, I'd love to ask you a couple questions that aren't necessarily out of home questions, but I'm sure you could give us some insight. Are you down for that?
Yes, I might be frozen, but yes.
Okay, you just unfroze, so perfect timing. All right, so I'm calling these questions from Carlos Zavala. He's the marketing manager for InMotion Media, and these are some questions he came up with that I thought were great. If you weren't running Dash 2, and maybe it's being a pilot full time, if you weren't running Dash 2, what would you be doing right now?
I'd be retired. I'd be a retired flight instructor. That's what I would do.
That sounds like a fine plan.
Me and my wife are planning on having a child, so I'll be an old dad, but I'd be just a pilot, flight instructor, dad. That was a good question.
So thank you. So second question is, what are you most excited about right now?
So as I said before, we're in a recession, and that gives us plenty of opportunity to hire new talent, to acquire new companies, to build your brand, your.
Awesome. And where do you go? Are you a reader, a podcast guy? Where do you go for inspiration and to?
I'm definitely a podcast guy. I listen. Actually, oddly enough, I actually sleep to podcasts.
You do what? You sleep to them?
I fall asleep listening to podcasts. So I'm a rabid news junkie, business junkie. So I'm always listening to what's happening out there.
Talk to me about the sleeping to the podcast thing, because that's the thing I'm into. It's not something we've explored on the show here. I listen to a lot of stuff at night as well. What are your thoughts? Do you have a thought process behind that?
Yeah, sometimes I'll wake up going, I have an idea and I have no idea where it came from. I've heard something before and I have no idea where it came from. It's because I was probably, falling asleep and listening to a podcast. It's kind of like reading to your baby in the womb. I mean, it works. It's like subconscious. I think you can still learn in the middle of the night when you're sleeping.
For sure. We turn off all these other major functions and distractions, and you just pipe that stuff right into dreamland. And
some podcasts don't work though. Like some podcasts you can't fall asleep to.
What's one that you could recommend for anyone listening to fall asleep to?
Oh, geez. Well, I listen to like true crime stories. Those are not the ones you can sleep to.
Might come up with some different ideas.
But I'll listen to like BBC News, NPR News, How I Built This, things like that. And those put me right to sleep.
How I Built This, great show, and definitely a good place for a source of inspiration. Where can people find more about you, more about Dash 2, some of the projects that you're working on? Where are you guys most active?
Instagram is really the place right now. We have a very it's funny, if you type in advertising blogs on Google, we're actually the #1 blog.
Damn.
Which is funny, yeah. So we have a very robust blog that we try to post once a week on. And that really helps brand us. And obviously Instagram. So it's really our website and Instagram.
Well, great. We'll make sure to link out to all of that stuff. And Gino, it's been fun, and we'll have to cover some exciting new campaigns as the world gets turning again.
Thanks, Tim.
Absolutely.
Apologies for the buffering.
No, listen, no apologies needed. It's it is the way of the world, so none required. Hey, listen, if this has been helpful, please share it with somebody who could benefit. As always, click the subscribe button down in the corner. If you want to get swagged up, you can go to oohswag.com. Use promo code INSIDER for 10% off your first order. We'll see you guys real soon.